Would you like to know the two most common errors in-network dentists make with their PPOs? These are mistakes that cost the average practitioner $40,000 net profit year in and year out. Well, stay tuned because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about right now in this live broadcast here from PPO Exit. One of the most common mistakes that we find is it has to do with umbrella networks. I hope you have a pen. I want you to write these things down. There are three terms. First of all, about half of dentists have never heard of umbrella networks, don't know anything about it. And so when we talk about it, even though they've never heard the terms, they do know that there's a problem because once I describe the problem, they say, yeah, I didn't know why that was happening, but that's happened to us a few times. It's probably happened way more than a few times, actually. So this will be enlightening for those of you who are unaware. For those of you who are aware of them, now you're going to know what to do about it to make that money back, to get the 40. Well, you won't make the money back you lost, but to make the extra $40,000 a year per practitioner. If you're a two-doctor office, it could be $60,000 or $80,000 or more. All right, so what are we talking about? Write down umbrella networks, and there's three different terms, equals shared networks, equals leased, Leased. So a leased network, a shared network, and an umbrella network, those are all the same thing. All right, we're just going to call them umbrellas today, but let me give you an analogy which will make it a little bit easier to understand what this is about, because the insurance companies do this on purpose to make it really confusing, and they do a lot of things to make it confusing because they make more money and we make less, and they drive a wedge between us and our patients as a result. All right, so the airline analogy. Let's say you're booked on American Airlines flight 123 from Boston to Los Angeles. You get to your gate, you're sitting at the gate waiting for the flight to load, for them to board. And you notice that it says American Airlines flight, let's say it's 123, and then it changes and it says JetBlue flight 457. And then it changes again, but it doesn't go back to American, it goes to some other airline name and some other 3-digit or 40 or whatever the flight number is, but it's all to the same city at the same time out of the same gate. You've seen this before. You've been on these flights. All it is, and by the way, you get on the plane that says American on the outside of the jet, but it's a partnership, and I think American calls it the One World Alliance. And there's many different of these umbrellas within the airline industry. They're basically shared networks, shared partnerships. So it's the same plane. It's going to the same place from the same gate. All right, so you've been on this, you know what it is. Let's talk about how that affects us in dentistry and how you can fix it. Mrs. Jones is your new patient. Lovely lady. She comes in, sits down. Your team looks at her insurance, and you're not in her plan. She asks you, are you in this network PPO? She's in Acme 123. There is no Acme 123. But anyway, she's in Acme 123. And you look at your team members look at all your plans and establish you're in 10 different plans, but you're not in Acme at all. You never signed up with Acme. So you explain to Mrs. Jones that we're not there. We can help you with your insurance. We can certainly submit it. We'll try to maximize your benefits. But bottom line is, as you and I know, she's going to be paying your full fee. Well, she's not. One would assume you would be because she's not. You're not in network with her plan. But here's where the big 800-pound gorilla comes in and is killing us. Let's say it's $3,000 worth of work. You do the work. You submit the to the insurance. She pays her money. You get an EOB back that says you are required by contract. You're required by law to write off $1,100 of that $3,000 or $800, some number, some crazy number. How is that even possible? You're not in network. Well, the answer is there is fine print in many, if not all of your contracts for your PPOs. And the fine print says, if you were to treat a patient who is in any other PPO plan, any other network, and if Acme 123, not Acme, if one of the ones that you signed up for, let's say you signed up for American PPO, again, it doesn't exist, but let's say you signed up for American PPO, you're in network with American, well, your American contract and all the contracts, or all of them say, if we're in a shared or a leased or an umbrella network, they'll use any of those words, with another plan, you must treat that patient as if you were in network. Now, that may sound bad, but it gets worse. That's bad enough. But here's the insult to injury. Let's say Mrs. Jones happens to be, let's say there's 8, and this would be typical. Let's say that there's 8 different insurance plans within the umbrella. So one umbrella in your area, in your zip code, has these 8 different plans. Unfortunately, you're in one that's also in the same network, shared lease network with Mrs. Jones, and that's why you have to write some money off. So that's bad enough. But let's say Mrs. Jones happens to be in the top paying plan of all of the insurance plans within that umbrella. She happens to be in the best one. And let's say that the plan that she happens to be in, the Acme 123, they're allowable, and I hate that word, but they're allowable fees. Let's say they're within 10% or 8% of your fees. You're typically writing off 25, 35%, 30%. Let's say hers are only an 8 or 10% difference from your fees. That sounds pretty good. Unfortunately, you can't charge those fees. You're not going to get those fees. The allowable fee for you is restricted to the particular plan that you signed up for. So even though she came in with a decent plan, which pays really good fees that you weren't in network for, you not only have to, and this is the worst part, this is the insult to injury, you not only have to write off money for somebody who's not in network with one of your plans, but you have to actually write it off to the extent of your allowable fees and not the plan she came in with. All right. So 2 mistakes. The most common 2 mistakes that we find with umbrella insurance. Number 1 is we find that dentists are in multiple plans. You don't want to be, write this down, you never want to be in more than one plan within an umbrella. Never. Why? Because, mistake number 2, you're not in the top paying plan. You might be in plan number 2 and plan number 5, or plan number 3 and plan number 8, the worst one. What you want to do is you want to get out of the ones that you're in and into the top paying plan. This is assuming you want to stay in network and you want to still treat patients in network. You want to be in the top paying plan in the umbrella, never in multiple plans at all. Now, if all this sounds confusing, and it is, the simplification of it is check to find out how many umbrellas are you in. So even though you might be in 8 plans, but you might be in 2 of those might be umbrellas, which means you might be responsible for reducing fees in 10 or 15 or 20 different plans. So figure out which umbrellas you're in and make sure you're not in more than one plan within an umbrella and only be in the top paying plan. Best way to do that part of that. And by the way, when you fix the umbrella problem, our PPO expert for Freedom Summit tells us that the average office, solo doc, one doctor, increases net profit by roughly $40,000 a year simply by reorganizing where they are within the umbrella, being in the top paying plan. So that's an enormous number. I mean, if you're making $250,000, $260,000 net right now because you're working your tail off, but you're losing your shirt to the PPOs, you just went from $260,000 to $300,000. If you were making $350,000, whatever, you're going to be making potentially $400,000. So wherever you are, you can bump up much higher simply by fixing this one error. And excuse me, if you are one of our Freedom Summit members, the PPO expert analysis of the umbrellas and recommendations for restructuring are part of the benefits of your membership. So if you're a Freedom Summit member, just ask your personal concierge to hook you up with our PPO expert, and they will run the analysis for you and make recommendations on which ones you should get out of, which ones you should go into, so that you're only in one in each and only in the top paying one. Speaking of dependence on PPOs, adding $40,000 is amazing, and you can do that, but there's a much bigger picture financially when you're in PPOs, and that is you're probably losing way more than 40. You're probably the typical office. Let's say you're $1 million office. 30% is not unusual. That's $300,000 that you're losing. If you're losing 35%, which is more likely, that's $350,000 per million. So The bigger picture is, and where you can get multiple six-figure additional net income or profit, would be reducing your dependence on PPOs. Now, the other doctors in your area, when you go to your local dental society meetings, or you're at lunch with a few other doctors, the other dentists in your area are going to say to you, you can't do it, not in our area. You can't reduce, you can't eliminate, you can't do that in our area because we have these three big factories. We have the teachers union, or all of the patients who come in this area, and all of the dentists except. Why do they all tell you it's impossible? There's two reasons that your local colleagues will tell you that it's impossible to do it in our area. And by the way, I did it in Framingham, Mass, where we had only about a 50 or 60,000 population in my area, and we had 70 general dentists within about 2 blocks of me. I mean, it was saturated, and they all accepted PPOs. And I had enough, and it took me a couple of years to do it safely, but I got out completely and went 100% fee-for-service. A few years later, when my father was dying of cancer and he asked me to take over his practice, which was in debt, big, huge practice, 11 chairs, 3 GPs, 2 specialists, 3 hygienists, a big support team. They were losing money with the PPOs right and left. I mean, huge money. He asked me to take that over and help my mom out. Took over that practice, and within 2 years, I had eliminated 13 of his 15 plans. This can be done anywhere. We've got members who've done it in Socorro, New Mexico, in the mountains, where the indigenous Indian population has no money, yet they appreciate the care and they'll pay for it if you do it right. We've done this in the deep bayou of Louisiana, Curtis Orang. This can be done anywhere. So why are they telling you it can't be done if it can be? Well, there's 2 reasons. Number one is they don't know. They don't know how. If they did know how, they would be doing it. So don't listen to somebody who says X can't be done because they've never done it, because if they wanted to do it, which they all want to do it, they would do it if they know how. Number 2 is my crabs in the bucket theory. And the crabs in the bucket theory is if you drop a whole bunch of crabs into a bucket with high walls, they can't get out, but they start climbing on each other to try. And if one of them is lucky enough to get one of his claws up to the top and start to pull himself up and out, the one right below him is going to pull him back down. So that's my crabs in the bucket theory. After I went 100% fee-for-service in Framingham, as I mentioned, and also in my dad's office, went about 90 to 95% fee-for-service. That's exactly what I've been doing for the last 23 years. Elizabeth, my wife, and I and our team have been helping other dentists across the country for 23 years safely reduce dependence on PPOs. In the process, you make more money, and many of them work less. Many of them work less hours. They all make more money. So my suggestion would be, the first step really would be to say you're ready to be liberated. And you can see on the screen there it says, if you type liberation right there below into the comments. Now, what are they looking for? They're looking to find out on that 10-minute call, are you in a situation, you'll describe to them your situation, are you in a situation where they might be able to help you? If so, you guys can dig further into that, probably at a different time, but you guys can dig further into that. And what we want to do is we want to help you map out a step-by-step plan. We've done this, as I say, for 23 years. We basically look at 4 different pillars within your practice. Those 4 pillars are the areas that I optimized in my Framingham practice and in my dad's practice in Worcester in order to do what I did safely and reliably. And it's the same 4 pillars that we look at in all of the other practices that we worked with over the years. Now, you may want to just reduce 1 or 2. Maybe there's one that just, if I could just get rid of, and I'm not going to name any of them, but if I could just get rid of that one, and you know the one that I'm talking about, I would be a happy camper. And that is possible. I mean, I did get out of that one and a couple others, and then in my dad's office, 13 of them. So maybe there's just 1 or 2 you want to reduce a little bit. Maybe you want to eliminate them completely. Either way, we'll map out a plan step by step so you'll understand exactly how you can do that. And whether or not we actually end up working together, you're going to get massive value from that call and clarity on exactly what are those steps. We can't help everybody. It only is helpful. We can only be helpful for you for that particular thing if you're a general dentist and you're the owner of your practice. So if you're a general dentist and the owner of your practice, type liberation. Now, I get questions from office managers sometimes and spouse and so forth. Well, can we schedule a call? Yeah, you can, totally. So all I'm saying is if you're the spouse of a general dentist or if you're the office manager of a general dentist, those are all fine too. So on that 10-minute call, we'll talk. But For all of our specialists out there, and I know we have tons of specialists within the within our PPO exit group, which is great. The vast majority of the things that we talk about, including being in the right umbrellas and all the other things that you'll find, and by the way, if you go to the guides, you'll find lots of cool stuff in there. They apply to pretty much anybody, but when it comes to the actual one-on-one coaching, that's something where our wheelhouse really is general dentists. So I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for being part of our movement, which is the no PPO movement, and being part of PPO exit. And hope you have an amazing weekend. Take care, and remember, you are only one gem away.